Ever get the feeling that we know the least about the people who hold the most power? I mean, today we're going deep on Hashim Safi.
Yeah,
This is someone who could be leading Hezbollah, and yet he's a bit of an enigma, right?
absolutely. And it's fascinating how much these sources reveal about his rise, though. It's been strategic, to say the least.
Definitely strategic. Okay, so set the stage for us. When we talk about Hezbollah, what are we really dealing with here?
We have to remember that Hezbollah, it's not just a militant group, even though that's often the focus.
Right.
They've woven themselves into Lebanese society, they provide social services, they're involved in politics.
It's multifaceted.
Exactly,
Yeah.
all while having this very powerful military branch.
Yeah.
And at the heart of it is the Executive Council, which Safieddine leads. That's a big deal.
So less about direct action, more about the behind the scenes, making the whole operation tick.
Exactly. Think of it like a company. You've got the CEO, that's Nasrallah, setting the brand vision, right?
Right.
But you need a COO to manage the day-to-day, and that's where Safieddine comes in. He makes sure everything runs smoothly. But to understand how he got there, we need to rewind a bit back to his roots. He was born in 1964, and his path, it's strikingly similar to Nasrallah's.
Oh, how so?
They both delved deep into religious studies, specifically in Najaf, Iraq, and Qom, Iran.
Now, those aren't your average religious schools, are they? What's the significance there?
Think Harvard or Oxford, but for Shia Islam. These are the Ivy Leagues, the places that shape religious leaders.
Okay, so top-tier institutions.
Yeah,
They're both coming from that same intellectual lineage.
exactly. The fact that both Safieddine and Nasrallah honed their skills and their worldview in these places
Yeah.
tells you a lot about their shared perspective and the connections they forged early on.
Yeah, it's like they're in this very elite club, only the stakes are a lot higher than just, who has the best networking opportunities.
Right.
So with that in mind, how did this shared background play into Safieddin's rise within Hezbollah?
It was fast, I'll tell you that. By 1995, he was appointed to the Majlis al-Shura.
Okay.
That's their top decision-making body, like a Politburo. They oversee everything, military, social programs, the works.
Wow, so they clearly saw something in him.
Oh, absolutely, and it didn't stop there. He then led the Jihad Council. Think of it as managing their military wing. Talk about a critical role. And by 2001, he was leading the Executive Council.
That's an impressive trajectory, to say the least. And there's the use of the word deliberate earlier. The Wikipedia article even suggests he was being considered as a potential successor way back in the 1990s. It seems like they've been grooming him for a leading role for quite some time.
For sure.
What does that tell us about how Hezbollah handled transitions of power?
Well,
It's more than just Hezbollah recognizing his importance too, right?
yeah.
We see the U.S. State Department, we see Saudi Arabia, both labeling Safieddine as a terrorist. Those aren't designations they throw around lightly. But what would put someone on that radar?
It means they see him as a serious player, not just for things he's done, but for the potential he has to disrupt things on a global scale. And for Safieddine, the State Department really zeroes in on his role in Hezbollah's financial dealings.
And we're talking about an organization known for its, shall we say, creative fundraising, right?
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting because of his connections. Remember, we talked about his brother, the representative to Iran. Well, there's a lot of evidence suggesting he's involved in some shady stuff, arms trafficking, money laundering, even whispers about helping Iran's nuclear program.
Wow.
Yeah, so if Hashim Safi takes the reins, those links to Iran and potentially to those more clandestine activities, they could get even stronger.
And the world is definitely paying attention. And not just the U.S. either. Back in 2018, Safieddine was hit with sanctions from a bunch of countries. We're talking the UAE, Bahrain. This isn't just a regional concern anymore.
Not at all. It really highlights his reach.
So it makes those earlier mentions of him possibly taking over even more intriguing. You mentioned rumors swirling as far back as 2006. And then in 2008, he's actually elected.
Right, although Nasrallah held on to power.
Right. So what do you think was going on there? Why didn't those transitions actually happen?
That's the million-dollar question. Hard to say for sure. Could have been internal power plays, worries about stability, pressure from outside. Maybe Nasrallah just wasn't ready to give it up or the timing wasn't right.
Yeah.
But one thing's clear. Safieddine has stayed in the picture, ready to step up if needed.
We started with this name, Hashim Safi, and now it's like we've unearthed this powerful figure. He's woven into Hezbollah's structure. He's got these deep ties to Iran, and he could be leading an organization that's considered a terrorist group by some of the biggest players in the world. It really makes you think, What would a Safdin-led Hezbollah actually look like? What would change?
Well, it's hard to say for sure. There are so many factors, right? But I think if we look at his history, at his relationships, the bigger picture,
Hmm.
we can at least explore some possibilities. I mean, you look at his history with Nasrallah, their shared background, the way they both rose through the ranks. It makes you think a huge strategy shift is probably unlikely.
So more evolution, not a complete 180.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. But there's this one big difference we can't ignore: his connections to Iran. His brother being Hezbollah's man in Tehran, his son marrying Qasem Soleimani's daughter. These are personal ties, sure, but they're also very political. It makes you think Hezbollah's alliance with Iran could deepen under his leadership.
It really makes you wonder how that would play out. Would it be more support for their proxies, or would they start taking a stronger stance in the region?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And then there's the whole issue of how the U.S. and its allies would react. I mean, they've already labeled him a terrorist, put sanctions in place. That's not exactly the best foundation for a friendly relationship, is it?
Not exactly. It's like this catch-22. Do those designations box him in, force him to maintain a hard line? Or could it push him in the other direction? Could he try to ease tensions, maybe find a way to soften Hezbollah's image on the world stage?
It's wild to think about. This is someone who's been prepared to lead an organization known for its, let's say, strong convictions. But now he's stepping onto this incredibly complex global stage.
Right.
So which is it? Will he stick to the path Hezbollah's already on, or will he be the one to forge a new one? I guess only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, Hashim Safi's story isn't over yet. We've only just begun to uncover who this guy is and the impact he could have.
Absolutely. And we have to remember, Hezbollah will be a major player in what happens in the region moving forward. Safi, if he becomes the leader, he'll have a hand in shaping the future of the Middle East and its relationship with the rest of the world.
That's a great point. Well, folks, that's all we have time for on this deep dive into the life and potential future of Hashim Safi. We've laid out the information, the possibilities. Now it's your turn to dig in. What do you think will happen? What kind of leader will Safi be? Share your thoughts. Keep the conversation going with us on social media. And as always, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.